Hello, I'm Mishka, and this channel is the Helsinki Renaissance, where we try to talk about arts and culture in whatever manner that our humble abilities allow us. Uh, I thought that I'd carry over that um, series of film discussions which might be titled Flop or Not or something like that. Because I watched two movies recently, both of which I think on some level might be described as a flop. So the fairly recent Francis Ford Coppola release, Twixt. I mean, it's strange calling it recent because it is quite a few years ago, but like if you compare it to Coppola's work in the 70s, Twixt is recent. So I watched that, and then I watched the Mickey Rourke movie, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. So I think that was Mickey Rourke's second comeback, or wait, no, first. So if 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 the wrestler was his second comeback, I'd say that the Marlboro Man was probably his first, because was it that he had gone away to do some boxing and he just took a break from Hollywood, and then I don't know whether the Harley Davidson was the first film he made after his slight break from filmmaking. But anyway, I don't know. It's maybe stretching the definition of what a flop is to make the Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man fit the idea, but I'm not the one accepting the initial legacy of a movie as anything, because I want to, evaluate it anew and see whether some hidden gems could be discovered out of the bargain bin. But anyway, let's not get too caught up with what is a flop. Let's just say that these are movies which are not universally adored by film critics of the world. So anyway, Twixt by Francis Ford Coppola. If we'll deal with that first. Val Kilmer, he plays a crime writer who is on the worst book tour of all time, and that book tour takes him to some small town in America where apparently some gruesome murders are happening at eyebrow-raising regularity. And Val Kilmer, during his book tour, he meets the town sheriff, and in dreams slash hallucinations, he also meets Edgar Allan Poe, who is a colleague of his who also spent some time in this small American city. And Val Kilmer, he has some interactions with the dead author in his hallucinations, and then he has interactions with some of the townspeople. mostly the sheriff, and he gets pitched the idea that he'd start writing some true story uh, fiction about some of this that's happening, and then because he's very down on his luck, he accepts it, and then he and the sheriff sort of start investigating stuff. So anyway, I think that's enough of the plot. So at the very beginning of the movie, the sheriff asks Val Kilmer, "What does it feel like to be, the bargain bin Stephen A. King?" And Val Kilmer answers that it doesn't feel that great. So like, as the movie was just initially going on, I sort of had the idea to ask the movie that what does it feel like to be the bargain bin Twin Peaks? Because the idea that you combine the kind of small American town with very quirky townspeople, horribly gruesome crime, and then very bizarre supernatural happenings behind the scene. Like, when you combine those three elements, that's Twin Peaks. I don't know whether Francis Ford Coppola has seen Twin Peaks or not. Like, I don't know. But I mean, certainly this is a project that, where somebody to come up with a really a really cheap B-film ripoff of the Twin Peaks formula. I think Twixt would be that to a T. Initially, I was looking at the film a bit askance because, well, I mean, I guess I was intrigued that where would Coppola take it? Because it initially felt like the film couldn't possibly set itself up for anything other than a failure. But then the film sort of gradually, like, almost started winning me over. If you take the Mike D'Angelo scale of failure, fiasco, and secret success, I think Twixt is difficult to evaluate because I think on some level it's all of those things. But I mean, that's not an answer. So if I'd have to pick just one, I'm gonna say it. I think Twixt is just good enough to be a secret success. Because I'll talk a bit about my problems with the film. So it's obviously a complete mess, but and it's a lazy mess at that. But I think that there's such a thing that some of the things that under normal circumstances should turn against the movie, I think that they almost, like, in some bizarre way, start feeling almost as if like they are strengths. Because, like, for instance, I think that none of the people involved in Twixt seem to be on the same page. So that Bruce Dern, for instance, he's acting in a comedy. Like, he's a sheriff with he has a name that's something like his name was something like Bobby Lagrange or something like that. I forget what his first name was, but he kept referring to himself in the third person. He kept saying to Val Kilmer that we should write a book where, like, I am a character and that, you know, you should just trust that Bobby Lagrange, he'll fix everything. and, and he just kept referring to himself in the third person. and, you know, I mean, he just kept playing this, you know, crazy old coot who, like, I mean, no drama could possibly have him be the law enforcement official of any town. Like Bruce Dern, he was just hamming it up. Like, I mean, he was more out there in this movie than he was in Hateful Eight. So, like, Bruce Dern is playing in a comedy. Val Kilmer occasionally turns things into comedy, I guess, when he feels like there isn't anything going on. So, like, some of the actors seem to sort of be in a comedy, and I think that this movie actually works quite nicely when it's going on like that, in that it's as if Val Kilmer and Bruce Dern are like in Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz, so that they could very well fit that universe. However, this movie is not Hot Fuzz because this isn't a comedy. Like this film has like the nature of the crimes and how the film goes about it. It's genuinely gruesome and unpleasant. I mean, the movie makes these really awkward turns between some people just clowning around in there, and then like it turns serious out of nowhere. But the way that it tackles those serious subjects, it's as if that how should I put it? I don't think the way in which Coppola shoots subjects that should be serious, it's as if it's a cartoon for him. So that Coppola is like throwing, you know, if I had to describe Twixt to anyone, I'd say that it's like the world's most bizarre, you know, meeting point between Woody Allen's Midnight in Paris and Tim Burton's, you know, say Sleepy Hollow and Corpse Bride or something. Like the way in which it's almost like Woody Allen meets Tim Burton, but more violent and unpleasant than would be probable with the recently Disneyfied Tim Burton. I mean, the mixture of elements in Twixt, like, I mean, it's the kind of mess that a young director could very easily make. But I mean, Coppola, he's like, he started his career as a very steady hand, but then when he left the studio system to go on his own, well, things turned a lot stranger for him. So, like, Coppola has started to experiment a lot with his later period movies, and it certainly did not surprise me that Twixt was basically like there were large parts of the movie that were basically just a failed visual experimentation, so that there are some sequences, like sometimes the film looks like a Brian De Palma movie because there's like split screens going on, and you know, even the plot sort of has the feel of a Brian De Palma film. They kind of you know, like Brian De Palma, he has a strange way of being both trashy and classy when he's doing like B-film thrillers, like Dress to Kill or something. And like Brian De Palma, he has a really upscale way of being trashy with his thrillers, if that makes any sense. And like sometimes Twixt felt like a De Palma movie, but then Coppola, he keeps throwing something that like there's so much CGI that it basically looks like an animation. So I start thinking something more like Corpse Bride of Tim Burton, but then he he just keeps throwing these elements like homages to Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and so on, and it just feels like on some level Twixt, it's a really simple movie. Like there's some murders, like large part of the plot of the film is finding out who is who done it, and the murder plot is very quickly, it's almost within minutes explained. It's I mean yeah so I'm describing the film in a very orderly manner, but then again the film doesn't go about its business in a very orderly manner. So that it's as if Coppola is just throwing random things at the audience, and like there's just some things to know, some things to notice. I don't know if it adds up to a particularly significant experience, but like I mean. If I had to explain the experience of watching Twixt, is that if you liked Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz and you could live with it being a bad movie, like a really badly made movie that frequently just didn't make any kind of sense on some level, I maybe really like Twixt. Like, I feel like, Coppola, he was definitely hedging his bets with the movie. Because, like, initially I was really liking it when Val Kilmer started having these midnight chats with Edgar Allan Poe. I thought that was the best that the movie was, when it basically wasn't being a poor man's Twin Peaks, which was okay in a way. But like those midnight conversations with Edgar Allan Poe, but like Coppola, he just kept cutting to a different angle that revealed that Val Kilmer was talking to himself, and that Edgar Allan Poe wasn't like really there. It's just the idea that Coppola thought that he could both establish some kind of realism that you cannot have conversations with long since departed novelists. So like there was that kind of realism there, but then he wanted the goods out of the fantasy side, so that there's just some I don't know, some random flirting with some neo-Gothic imagery and iconography. So, like, he wanted the supernatural thing, but then he wanted to distance himself from it. He wanted the kind of, like, vampire community, but then he wanted to distance himself from that and say that they were just teenagers posing around. I don't entirely understand why he sort of intentionally goes out of his way to trivialize those plot elements. So that, for instance, there's a gang of teenagers that, like, their leader, like, who really feels like a leftover Twin Peaks character, there's some sort of a gothic vampire biker gang whose leader is into Baudelaire's poetry, which he recites in the moonlight, and they listen to something like Sisters of Mercy, and they dance with some fires burning around them, and they are a booming little community by the river, and like so, and some of the townspeople think that these kids are evil and probably behind all crimes, and they're like halfway offered as a red herring, but Coppola immediately makes it known that the people who are accusing the teenagers, they cannot possibly be right about anything. So that it's like the red herringness of the gang of gothic poetry lovers, or I don't know what are they. I mean, the gothic gang is offered as a red herring and immediately taken out. But I don't know if Coppola entirely understands what it's doing to his film, that he's hedging his bets. He wants to have it both ways. He wants to offer the fantastic so that the film wouldn't just be a boring tale of reality. He wants the fantasy, but he wants to immediately make it known that the fantasy is just a fantasy, so that well, I mean, it's the strangest experience watching the movie. I mean, it's as if there's that scene in Lyon where Jean Reno and Natalie Portman, they are having some sort of a fancy costume party thing, but it's as if like I can't remember which one of them dressed up as Charlie Chaplin, but it's he or she would have pulled the other to the side and said, "I'm not really Charlie Chaplin. I'm just playing Charlie Chaplin," and like I think that most people could have understood that much. So it's as if like if Twixt by Coppola, if it has that kind of moment where like some teenagers, they are playing vampires, but then they sort of, Coppola wants to interject and say that they aren't really vampires, they're just playing vampires. It's a strange movie. It's a strange movie, partly because out of all strange movies, Coppola manages to sort of rescue this kind of normal through line that gets you across the work, that everything that's untypical can be explained away. Like, I mean, in a way, it's the opposite. Like, that mentality is the opposite of Twin Peaks. And yeah, like there's a bunch of hallucinations, and well, there's one crazy person in the movie, and then just yeah, it's a strange experience talking about Twixt, but like I think that the movie almost works in spite of itself. I think that a lot of the decision making is suspect at best. Like some people seem to work under the assumption that they are in a comedy. I think that Coppola and the cinematographer are very earnestly doing experimentations, and I guess there are other people who try to keep it grounded as a drama. And ultimately, I mean, I don't think the movie really achieves anything. Like it's just there's a very simple story, like a very simple story. It could be like an X-Files episode, but then Coppola takes something that could be like an X-Files episode, and then he keeps mystifying it, but then negating his own mystifications, and there's just some strange turning throughout the movie, and I, like I liked it basically in spite of itself. It's a strange fucking film. But like, I'm sure lots of people would like it just for the Bruce Dern line delivery. Which, I think basically everything Bruce Dern says is laugh out loud funny. Um, so, like, there's something going up. I mean, like, uh, it's, yeah, I mean, I almost can't like physically form the words of praising it somehow because it's just such a mess. But I still call it a secret success because I mean it's just such a peculiar little movie. Now, anyway, that was enough. I apologize if my thoughts were semi-incoherent, but you know that movie isn't exactly a you know um, it's not exactly a tour de force of classicism either. So that we'll just have to accept my semi-chaotic thoughts about it. And the other film that I did see was the Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Now, I didn't look at who directed it because I basically didn't care. Uh, and if we were to take the D'Angelo scale of failure, fiasco, secret success, I feel bad for calling this film as well a secret success because I feel like these are two movies that aren't exactly good, but I think that there's something that's just sort of winning about both. So anyway, like the plot of Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, Mickey Rourke plays Harley Davidson. Apparently his name is Harley Davidson. And Don Johnson of Miami Vice fame plays somebody who they just call the Marlboro Man. And well, I guess Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man, they sort of know each other. Like, they have some sort of a history. But anyway, the film begins when Mickey Rourke, the Harley Davidson character, he rides into the city and he immediately teams up with Don Johnson. Although, before they can have any bonding, they both have separate bar fights, so that they sort of cross each other's paths. So Don Johnson is playing pool in a bar, and Mickey Rourke walks in, and then Don Johnson gets into a bar fight with like 4 Native American gentlemen who lose a game of billiards and don't want to pay. So there's a bar fight between, basically a cowboy and 4, would-be Indians. So there's that, and then they go to another bar, and then Mickey Rourke has a bar fight in the other bar, except he's sort of friends with the person he fights, so that even though he throws him out the window, they're still like sort of friends. but anyway, like there's some bar fights that have to be gotten out of the way, and then after those, well, the owner of the bar that they just basically destroyed says that he doesn't have the money to run his operation anymore, and the destruction of his property by his friends certainly doesn't get him any further to getting new loans by the bank. But anyway, Mickey Rourke has the idea that uh, the bar is gonna get closed if they don't get some money to continue the lease. They should rob a bank so that they could pay a bank to keep the bar going. And everyone except Don Johnson thinks it's a great idea, but then Don Johnson, he can sort of be talked into uh, going along with it. But anyway, well, they there's an armored car with the bank insignia on it, so they decide to rob it so that they can give the money back to the bank and keep the bar going. But unfortunately, what happens is that I'm not making this up. It's it's hard to say. Um, I'm trying. I'm trying. So that the bank that they are robbing, they are actually running a drug dealing operation, so that well the well, well the bank is also transporting a new drug that they have launched to the market, and the armored car that Mickey Rourke and his gang that they stop and steal the contents of. There isn't any money in the bank's armored car. There's just the drugs, and then some leather-clad stormtroopers of the bank show up to the scene and just start firing at Mickey Rourke and his gang with assault rifles. And they basically have to take the drugs and run away, which they do. And so Mickey Rourke and the gang, they've regrouped. They have the stolen drugs that they don't want, because all they want is to steal the money from the bank so they can give the money back to the bank so that they can take a loan and help their friend keep his bar, which they partially destroyed. So they go for the kind of meeting with the bank manager, who's also a drug dealer and who has a private army of stormtroopers with assault rifles hunting people up and down Los Angeles. So that they arrange for the kind of exchange of the drugs for money, which they will then give back to the bank. Well, they arrange for the exchange, but then something goes wrong. There were so many standoffs in the movie. So anyway, something goes wrong, and then Mickey Rourke and Harley Davidson find out that they are retro guys in a modern world, and they can't really work deals with these modern people, which the bank manager / drug dealer represents. So that they just decide to sort of like, since the stormtroopers of the drug kingpin / banker have declared war on the Mickey Rourke gang. The Mickey Rourke gang decides to declare war on the stormtroopers of the bank, and they just storm the premises. Now, if you think that this is somewhat surreal, it's about to get a lot more surreal, because as they enter the premises of the bank, that is the drug dealing headquarters as well, we realize that we aren't the only people who have seen Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. The Wachowskis have seen Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and the way in which the banking headquarters has been designed starts bearing uncanny resemblance to several set pieces in The Matrix, not the least of which is that when there's a standoff between the Mickey Rourke character and the Tom Sizemore character, I think it was, who's the banker, it seems that all has been lost to the Harley Davidson gang, but then a helicopter flies by the window, takes out a Gatling gun, and then just, tells Mickey Rourke to duck down, and just starts, firing at everything in the room, and then just flies away. And as I was watching that, I mean, like, I've watched a couple of 90s movies that have had moments basically wholesale being lifted to the Matrix. So I've actually seen that in the past, that there have been this kind of Tarantino-esque reappropriations of certain 90s films. But like, I didn't expect that something like the Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, would basically get remade in the Matrix. So that as I was watching it, it's the experience. It basically got me closer to understanding Paul Verhoeven. So anyway, like basically everything about Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, it's like some sort of a bizarro, accurate manifesto of the American mythology. So that there is this ragtag group of outsiders who cannot be stopped and cannot be tamed, so that they are the last real people in a soulless corporate world. There's a couple of cowboys who are, the I don't know, like, I'm sure they remember Alamo when everyone else has forgotten it. There's a couple of individuals who still have that Davy Crockett spirit, and like the combination of a bank with a drug dealer, like, that's such a Paul Verhoevenian touch, that like, this film could have very easily have been a Paul Verhoeven movie. Like, the kinds of social critiques that he does in, like, a knowingly silly way, that things that he keeps appropriating to, like, just so much schlocky genre films. Just that idea of if there are some people who feel that like, the world around them it's like a conspiracy of lies and corruption and deceit. But there's a couple of honest cowboys still left, and then the mythology of a couple of honest cowboys taking on the evil empire and defeating them in shootouts or something. Uh, it's just I. Uh, there was something almost anthemic about Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. Now, if you think that I'm reading too much into it, there was a moment early on, after the two characters had had their bar fights, they went past a billboard that said Die Hard 5, Die Hardest, or something. Like, the film was clearly making fun of completely dumb action movies, I guess. Like, that's how I read it. And then the next moment, when they had been making fun of the Die Hard series, or the Die Hard sequels, the Mickey Rourke character started talking about something spiritual. He wanted to talk about worldviews with the Don Johnson character, and the Don Johnson character was kind of like he wasn't really feeling it, and he was like, man, like why you gotta start bringing this up with me? I just came from a bar fight, and we'll probably go to another bar fight. Like, what do worldviews matter? But the Mickey Rourke character, he was very insistent that he's gone away. He's meditated about these things, and like, he hasn't got all the answers, but he's interested in the answers, which it's actually a somewhat Francis Ford Coppola-esque touch, because Coppola said in the Inside the Actor Studio that the Rumblefish is full of shots about clocks. So that, Coppola, he said that perhaps he isn't saying anything profound about the nature of time, but at least he's showing that he's interested. Twixt, by the way, it's also prominent with clock motifs. And again, Coppola probably isn't saying anything with them, but he's just showing that he's interested. And the Mickey Rourke character in Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, he's showing that he's interested in the what the Buddhist might call dharma. So that there's the one right, there's the path of the right action, and I guess Mickey Rourke is interested in dharma without knowing what dharma is. At least that's how I'd think of his character. And like, he occasionally talks about stuff like that as if it's somehow on his mind. I feel like the Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man film, it knows that there is something that it should be thinking about, like the Mickey Rourke character. That it knows that it's addressing the end of an era, but it doesn't really know how. I mean, it doesn't know how to go about it, but there's the two characters who knows that the world has left them behind, and that the world has so changed that there's no going back to how things used to be, and they are sort of left there being conscious about their total displacement in the modern world. Like, it's a film that's sort of rich with half-grasped ideas about the death of the Old West and so on, and like, these are the last cowboys of the American West. Like, if the movie would have an alternative title, something like The Last Cowboys, could sort of describe what is happening in the movie. But like, I mean, it's as if those characters are like conscious of it, and they are somehow like vaguely saddened by it, but they also like blatantly don't care. So that for them, they are just existing in the present, and they don't care if they're the last cowboys. But like, it's as if the film, it's as if the film accidentally reaches some interesting moments where it, like, you could halfway see that the film could be something more than a completely idiotic action movie, and that kind of mustache twirling banker drug dealer. I mean, it is the stuff of dumb action movies, and it is just a dumb action movie. But like, you could halfway see that, if every other scene wasn't a bar fight, it could be something more. Like, I was surprised how much I liked the Babette Schroeder movie, Barfly, starring Mickey Rourke, because like, I thought that it would be something like something that would just be okay, but I actually thought that it ranged from very good to great. That there was great mood in the Barfly, and just some I don't know. It's just Barfly felt like a significant movie that came from a real place, and obviously the Marlboro Man and Harley Davidson, it's nothing like it, but I felt like it had the slightest of echoes. Like, it was basically a Die Hard movie. Like, I don't know how they can afford to make fun of Die Hard movies, because at the height of their powers, they are only Die Hard light. And I'm talking about a Die Hard sequel, not the original, which is a film of different quality. But anyway, like, yeah, there's something strange in, like, it's as if like well, it definitely does have some charm to it, Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, but I don't quite know what it is. Like, I mean, it has all the thought work of what is it? Are they Bud Spencer and Terence Hill movies that they are doing in the 70s? Like, it's as if the Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man could be made to fit that continuum. So, like, it's just it's as if the stars were sort of like, the stars were almost aligned to elevate this fairly bad movie into something that could almost be like a eulogy for, a piece of Americana that cannot go on as it is. But I don't know how much credit I can give the movie, but I definitely found it fairly enjoyable, but basically almost only because it was so laugh out loud funny. As was Twixt in places, but the difference is that Twixt has the kind of wild tonal turns that almost feel like they're unscheduled, but the Harley Davidson and Marlboro Man, it's a smooth ride in comparison. But anyway, I think that both Twixt and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, I think that like, if I call them a secret success, it's only because like there's some entertainment element in it. So they um, they are movies that almost play to the so bad it's good audience, except that I feel like that's slightly unfair to the movie because like um, both have some things going on for them, but like I'd say that a certain kind of laziness and a certain kind of total indifference characterizes both of those projects. But it's as if they have like a sluggish charm about them. I don't know. Like I had a more or less a good time watching both films, so I don't want to call them failures because like there are worse movies. But anyway, those were some of my thoughts about Francis Ford Coppola's Twixt. Um, you know, Betwixt Now and the Sunrise, I think was the original title or something. I think they should have kept it, but well, what's a bad movie without a bad title, right? So Twixt it is, and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, which could be referable as the Last American Cowboys. But anyway, those were my thoughts. If you have your thoughts, you can leave them in the comments or something else. But anyway, those are for me. So I thank you for watching and bye bye.